Now, Rubio is the one who released Volume 5 of the Senate Bipartisan Intelligence Report saying that Putin preferred Trump, intended to help him hurt Hillary Clinton, etc. He released that report, so now he has that on his name and he's a Secretary of State, and it directly contradicts everything Tulsi Gabbard's going to say. So it's so entertaining. I love this stuff. So watch how he's going to like mince words to try to like confuse the Fox News audience into thinking that he is in any way corroborating Tulsi Gabbard's findings, which are complete lies. None of it's true. But hopefully he'll get into the more of the weeds so I can talk about more details of it.
Russian intelligence officials to help his campaign. And what my investigation that I was the acting chairman of the Intelligence Committee, what that investigation showed is that there was zilch proof whatsoever, any evidence of any kind, that the Trump campaign in any way colluded with the Russians. That's number one. That's clear. So I think what they should be saying is that there was a bipartisan study done by the Senate committee that found that the narrative that all these people were putting out there was a lie. Here's the other thing that report found, that the way they handled the dossier, understand this dossier was a piece of campaign disinformation. It was paid for by political campaigns.
All right, so just know, none of Tulsi Gabbard's claims have anything to do with what he just said. All of her claims are about the idea that the initial intelligence findings that Putin interfered in the election, Tulsi Gabbard denies that even. And then she denies that Putin interfered in the election to help Trump and hurt Hillary Clinton. She also denies that. And tons of people on the right are denying that, like Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro. They deny this clear fact that was corroborated by Marco Rubio himself. Now Marco Rubio is making it about what it was about in 2017. Every time you turn on Fox News at 5 p.m., they were probably talking about this, that there's no evidence of Russian collusion, right? That's all he's talking about in the Steele dossier. Well, the Steele dossier was not used a single time in the ICA. If it was, then you would be able to prosecute John Brennan for perjury. You'd be able to prosecute so many people for perjury. The Steele dossier was used in a 2-page annex in the ICA report, just to give context to respond to publicly known claims that Christopher Steele kind of brought into the public eye with his dossier. And the dossier was not very good. It was mostly rumors. And the FBI had some real issues with their Carter Page FISA court application. That is all true. But what you cannot say, and what Tulsi Gabbard does say, is that the dossier was used for real intelligence. If that is true, John Brennan should be in prison right now. He would be. Like, so many Republicans have had a look at this. He would be in prison. And so many people would also be in prison.
They hired the equivalent of a private investigator, and then they laundered it. Usually they take that and leak it to the media. In this case, they laundered it through our intelligence agencies. So you had some of the highest level officials in our intelligence agencies in the country taking that fake, ridiculous dossier and using it to influence and inform an official intelligence assessment of what happened in this campaign. The report that we put out pointed to this.
None of that's true, or everyone would be in jail. You talk about the FISA court application, don't talk about the ICA. The ICA did not include an ounce of Steele dossier. And the intelligence community said so. John Brennan was sympathetic to Christopher Steele. He said that a lot of the vibes of the Steele dossier just felt right, but he did not think it was good intelligence, right? He did not think that. He testified. He said that was not the case. You can say he's sympathetic to it, that the FBI, that the intelligence agencies were too nice to it. I think that they were. I don't know how much they should have known at the time, but this Steele dossier was never taken seriously enough to be put in any of Obama's directed intelligence reports. Never.
My statement at the time pointed to this, and I think we've learned even more about how hard, what we've learned over the last, with these new revelations, is how hard the FBI and some people, not all, but some people at the CIA worked to make that dossier a part of their intelligence assessment. It is a huge outrage because it was fake. It was a lie, and they used it to mislead the American public. It cost millions of dollars in investigations.
Great, so now he's talking about the Mueller report. Did the Mueller report use the Steele dossier? No, I'll tell you what the Mueller report did use. By the way, every time you hear a conservative say Russian collusion was completely made up. No, it was not made up. It was completely valid. And the fact that the Trump administration did not get to a point where they colluded with the Russians is a miracle for Donald Trump, because it was headed in that direction quite clearly. You look at the Trump Tower meeting, where Russian nationals came to Trump Jr. and Paul Manafort and said, our government supports Donald Trump. We would like to meet and discuss dirt we have on Hillary Clinton. And they said, sure, let's meet. That's collusion. But by the way, the Mueller report confirms that this proves some intent for collusion on Trump's part or his administration's part. Now, this is mostly lower level Trump administration officials, not Trump himself. Trump himself was pretty ignorant to all of this. But then we look at Papadopoulos, right? We look at him bragging about how he knew about the hacked emails to an Australian diplomat in London. And then when the DNC hack happened, the Australian Australian intelligence tipped off the FBI that Papadopoulos knew about this ahead of time. And that started off Crossfire Hurricane. So this is all real stuff. Like, how do you know about a Russian hacking operation? That is very suspicious. So either you colluded with them in some aspect on that, or you just knew about it because someone told you. Those were the two options. That ended up being that someone just told him, but it's very suspicious. Then you have Paul Manafort sharing internal polling data with Russian nationals and being caught in a whole FAR scheme, working for Russian interests in Ukraine, and being pardoned by Trump, even though he should have been in jail for years. You had Roger Stone trying to reach out to WikiLeaks, trying to get their timing when they were going to release their emails, trying to get the pending emails. Jeremy Corsi trying to get them from Julian Assange, to get Russian hacked emails for himself to release for the Trump administration. And then back to Papadopoulos, he tried to set up a Putin-Trump meeting. He admitted so on live TV. He tried to get a Putin-Trump meeting because he knew that the Russians were on the side of Trump. They told him many times, right? Putin told us he was on the side of Trump in 2018. So this garbage about how there was the Trump administration would have loved to collude with Russia. Now, if it got farther, I think there would have been some reasonable people in the Trump administration that would have said, no, this is going to get us put in jail, right? We shouldn't do this. But certain idiots like Roger Stone, Manafort, Donald Trump Jr., Papadopoulos, they would have loved Trump with Russian collusion. And the Mueller report comes to the exact same conclusions that I have. I encourage you to read the Mueller report. It's a very comprehensive document. And you will hear a lot of stuff that you have never heard before because media has undercovered this. Just like the media has not covered enough about January 6th. No one knows how actually bad that was. You should be able to describe January 6th in immense detail because it was probably the worst thing that any U.S. president's ever done by far. It's not even close. As far as like a corruption thing goes, right? It absolutely blows everything else out of the water. Like Teapot Dome, Iran-Contra, Watergate. It's pennies compared to January 6th. And everything else Trump did. But, so yes, what Rubio is saying here is complete nonsense. They had every reason to investigate this. And the Steele dossier was a small speed bump in an otherwise perfect investigative process, headed by a lot of Republicans, Michael Horowitz, John Durham, Robert Mueller, right?
A hoax. So that's the part they leave out because they're trying to play cute with words, and the media is either uninterested or too lazy to understand those nuances and that reality.
I think both. They were too busy getting their awards for running that story. Literally, all these New York Times, Washington Post, these reporters are getting rewards for being a stenographer for John Brennan and others who are clearly leaking even when out of office.